we can start now, Lance is here.
Use the mic and speaker. Good morning, Breakfast Clubbers! Good morning! How many have not been to the Breakfast Club before? Let me tell you what the rules are. Shut up! Okay? When people are speaking, don't have your own little meeting back here and go on it. I'll be a real butthead about it. Okay? And you know why? Because everybody else wants me to. Okay, I just want to make that clear. If you need to have a conversation, you can go right out the back here over there. And I prefer you not coming up here. Go ahead and go around there. We got a big animated crowd like this. I know what happens. Been doing this a long time, I'll tell you. Yakety, 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 yak. So what we're going to do is Mr. Allen, no throwing things. No knives.
I reserve the right to throw things.
All right. Because he probably will. What he's going to go ahead and do, he's going to ask one of you to take notes. Because he can. So if anyone has the ability or wishes to take some notes, please do so, and he'll be asking that in a moment. Now, the Breakfast Club has been going on, it's like 40 years, since the late 60s. Some people have been coming to the Breakfast Club for a long time. How many years have you guys been going to the Breakfast Club? I'm sorry?
We came when it was in the 60s.
The 60s?
I started in 74.
Wow, since they were teenagers. Okay. So the Breakfast Club has been a part of every long. Birmingham was a very staunch, goal-walking, country. As time had passed, there was a lot of, fluctuations in the philosophy and so, but it really was towards as it, went over the years. Long story, but a hardcore anarcho-capitalist libertarian is up here. And that exposed a lot of people to a whole different way of thinking. This is, in my opinion, inevitable. It always has been. It's what prompted Dr. Paul in the 70s to run for Congress in the first place. When we went off the gold standard in the early 70s during the Nixon administration, our fate was sealed. So this is, everything that we've been doing, and certainly my wife and I since the late 80s, has been in preparation of our young children that are now grown, and we started having grandchildren, and preparing them to keep breathing in and last with growth. I am freedomsphoenix.com. How many people know what that is? Freedom's Phoenix is a very by which last night we see in the future. It's going to be like in the 60s and 70s when the anti-war movement was passing around. Frank, you of all people. What it was is that the biggest threat to the collective power was on war and such by just passing out flies. Couldn't track it, couldn't trace it, who had the mimeograph machine, where's the printer, there's nothing they could do. Using, the phone system, might as well say government. You have faxes, emails, websites. As we've been empowered more and more as individuals, more and more we are being tracked, surveilled, and categorized. What we decided is that the new tablets, these iPads and the Androids, and even your smartphones, What has happened is we have been able to create digital magazines that are PDF files that are less than 4 megabytes. What that means is that you can email an 83-page magazine, our June edition, 59 pages I think is July. You can zap that to somebody else's electronic device, and they have interactivity with the internet, with our website, all this information and so on. It's like carrying an 18-wheeler truckload of magazines and newspapers in your pocket. And you just go zap, and these guys are doing it. I just came from a thing called Pork Fest. Porcupine Festival in New Hampshire. I was there almost 2 weeks. 2,000 people that are the average age in their 20s. Now, Jeff Cook back there, he went, learned how to ride a Segway, kind of. So it was a surprise to see him. Now, Jeff, those that don't know, trained law enforcement for line duty. He was at the academy training them in all kinds of different self-defense and take them down and knee in the back and stuff. His son is a captain in the Army. He gets out in a year. He's been to the Middle East and so on, doesn't want to play anymore. So him being exposed to the anarchist, libertarian, voluntarist, leave me alone-ist mentality, and then having that kind of reawakening and going to Pork Fest, man, had to be a culture shock. Now let me tell you what Alan and I'm going to let Alan go. He needed time to finish eating here real quick, so I'm going to entertain you for a couple minutes. Oh yeah, and then we got to sing.
Gotta sing.
We got to sing. First we got to sing. One of the traditions that we kept, is that you sing for your breakfast. That's just the way it is. What these green sheets are. We'll go ahead and do something simple because, you guys are new. Oh yeah, it's a good time to get acquainted. You don't like this one?
Yeah.
You can start me off. I always did it in the wrong key.
It's a good time
to get acquainted. It's a good time to know who is standing close beside you and to smile and say hello. Goodbye, that lonesome feeling. Goodbye, glassy stare. Here's my hand, my name is blah, blah, blah. Put your hand right there. There you go. All right. We got still position. Pork Fest, the Free State Project in New Hampshire, was decided about 6 years ago. They looked for and surveyed and had people vote online and all that, and promised that once they hit a certain number of people, they were to pick up and move to a particular state where they would try to expand freedom. New Hampshire was that state for a lot of reasons, but it's got issues. FreeKeene.com, K-E-N-E, is a city that's about an hour west of Manchester and probably the second largest community, third largest in New Hampshire. It has a core of voluntarist activists that every day are at the court. Every day at 4:20 in the town square in front of the court building, they smoke marijuana. Every day. Every day they're passing out jury nullification information. Every day they're in the courtroom getting arrested for wearing hats and not standing when the judge comes out. I mean, every day. When we were at Pork Fest, they have a festival, it's called Porcupine Festival, up near the Canadian border in a Rogers campground that can hold up to a few thousand people. Concerts, speaking engagements, big names that you probably heard of, everybody there talking, doing live television shows, and even National Public Radio came and did an interview talking to people. This is what happened on National Public Radio, got the man all upset this year. I went in, Donna, pull those cards out of that big bag. He goes, he went in, and he goes, I couldn't spend any money. You had to go and convert your Federal Reserve notes to silver. Everything was silver. What we've done here, many different kinds of this, what we did, these are pre-1960, 64 and times. 90% silver, just in the content of silver, this has a melt weight of $2.50. $2.50. So what happens is, they're great marketing tools also. You can put all kinds of stuff on it. Other organizations had their stuff. We even had some that, you know, it's a 1984 and Lou Reed and on and on and on. No. No, the cards. Those are free. Yeah, these are $2.50 and I lose at that because we put them together. So a lot of the concern has been, how do we get out of the Federal Reserve System? How do you have this voluntarist society? How would it regulate itself? How, all you damn loser libertarians, which I'm sure Alan will say several times. The thing is that I just came from it a week and a half. I don't think I know. I just lived it. National Public Radio guy comes in, he goes, it was amazing. I had to go to one of the silver retailers, Del Valley Silver or Silver Circle Movie, which is an animated movie that's coming out this next year. They had rounds, we had them, and these cards. And they had another one called Shire Silver, where we got the idea. They had strips of silver and gold thread in it, but you know, without being a minted U.S. coin, it wasn't as trusted. This is very trusted. 90% silver. Quarters are about, I don't know, $8, $12 for half dollars. I mean, it's not, just in melt value. So what we did is these got traded into and spent into the community. This was what was traded. The National Public Radio guy goes in, he goes, you know, I had to get my silver. I go up, and this is broadcast all over, I go up to a place to buy some stuff, and a 9-year-old kid was selling me beer. With his mom there, encouraging him. It was the home brew. Get on it, boy. We don't need no lemonade stand. We got some home brew. This is the type of stuff. And marijuana was openly smoked all over the place. No. Let me tell you the advantage I saw. Limited bathrooms, concerts, thousands of people, and no lines at the bathroom. Because they weren't drinking beer. They were smoking dope. So I'm going, oh, another benefit. Oh, you know about the what?
Snack tables.
Oh yeah, no. There was plenty of food sold. Okay? Which is where next year's improvement's going to come from. The merchants that took all the silver, they didn't have cash to go resupply at the grocery store. So what happened? A lot of people that wanted to buy silver anyway, they came in with cash, they bought up their silver, and then they went, cool, but would that open up? An entrepreneurial opportunity to have a narco-capitalist bank. Next year, some of the guys that were trading in copper and different things, they are opening up an exchange that will be, when you walk in, all your worthless paper goes to them, silver. It's not like it could happen or should happen. It's happened. It's already happening now to an entire generation next that understands the Federal Reserve and what its problem is. And they don't seek permission. And that's what the National Public Radio thing really got the man all upset, and he started making the calls. Because all of a sudden the liquor board is calling the campground, hey man, we understand you got unread liquor, yeah, and when you get a warrant, you can come in. Until then, the owner says none shall pass. So these people, so I went to Keene. I went to Manchester. I spent 2 more days after a week there. So I go to Keene. There they have an activist center. They're doing a lot of stuff. I go to Manchester. Across the street from a fire station is a speakeasy. You go in, you have to be invited or have a membership card, and you hit the little buzzer and you see the webcam, whether they let you in or not. Police and fire call, we're here to inspect. I'm sorry, I'm not authorized to let you in and get a warrant. Go in there, it's a retail shop, nice lounge area, it's about this size, and then they have a basement underneath, has poker tables, a full bar, and a nice little smoke-em den, okay? This is already happening. It's in the minds of Generation Next. And those that don't understand what's coming get left in the dust. But they are kind. They are giving. They are generous. And they are persistent. They will not go into this next generation as tax slaves that have no capacity to pay off the debt, no capacity to have an increased standard of living, and no capacity to live without this dark cloud of oppression over them. It won't happen. And they don't vote. The New Hampshire legislature has several free staters in the legislature. There are probably almost a dozen of them. They went up on the stage talking about, we saved $1 billion off of our budget. We took and we cut and we slashed and we're great, and look at all these great legislation we introduced and all this stuff. They were booed off the stage. These kids, Drew Phillips, the guy that came up with this idea, had bought up a bunch of 10th ounce of the Silver Circle. There was 1,100 of them. They sold out the first day, and he had a bunch of them. A state legislator from New Hampshire found out that he had these and came up to the table, and I had talked to him before, and some other legislator that I know, and that was a Libertarian Party guy, introduced me to him and all the great things and wonderful stuff that they're doing. And I knew him, and he was talking to him at the table. Would you give another freedom fighter or activist do a break on, and I need these darn blah, 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 and he's going on, and I pulled him aside and said, here, let me talk to you a second. I go, you tell him you're a legislator, and it's going to cost more. No. And he goes over, I did this, and Drew says, are you a legislator? He goes, are you a legislator? Yeah. These $4 coins that he got, he goes, they're $6. And he was mad. They did not understand the mentality of this next generation. They are done with politics. They are living it. They are avoiding the man. They are living inside the cracks. They are growing their own food. They're building their own houses, and they're not getting permits for their businesses.
Amen.
They know that the man's there. They know that they're coming after him. And every time a crowd of them show up in the courthouse. And when I was there Monday, Julian Heichman is a tenured professor from Penn State University that goes around the country getting arrested, handing out Fiji stuff. He was there. That morning, the gentleman went in to argue that he didn't need a driver's license to drive. Well, of course, I don't know what even happened to him, because while there was a guy from Liberty on Tour, 3 guys that travel around in an RV, promote liberty, was wearing a baseball hat sitting in the back of the courtroom. The judge gets up. I come back, that hat's gone, going to jail. And he's like, I'm not bothering anybody. No, I wasn't even paying attention. Bailiff comes up, you got it, judge comes back, you're under arrest. 5 days in jail for having a hat. Now they let him out a couple of days later, and this is why. The next day, his 2 other friends accosted the judge with a video camera. 5 days for a hat? Seriously, 5 days? 5 days? 5 days? 5 days? You're arrested for undue influence, whatever. You're going to, it's a Class B felony and you're going to be in forever. Really? The entire activist community across the country flooded them with emails and faxes and phone calls. Okay, man, they let them go. This is how they react. They are overwhelming government in a small area, and it's inspiring people and it's growing. These are the people that were the product of the Ron Paul revolution. They have come from that to not voting. They have ceased to give attention to the process. And anything that's going to be talked about how you're going to change the system has to come up against people that already know that it's not worth saving.
Well, we're going to challenge that assumption.
I know.
And see where it goes. How much are these, Ernie?
Alan Korwin,
How much are these?
$2.50 a piece. Really, they should be at least $3. That's what I cost. Well, I need a Tennessee one. That's Yeah, are you? I'm strapped, man. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
All the silver in these straps are back up. All right, let's hear it for Ernie. Come on. Before I get started on this, is there somebody willing to be our recording secretary and make notes of what this collapse is going to look like and how we're going to fix it? Somebody want to volunteer? There we go. Oh, he volunteered you. Do you know that? Are you willing?
She's already got her thing out.
She's already thinking. Anybody? Somebody?
I take short.
Anybody know how to
I
write?
gotta be able to read it. It's gotta be in English. Anybody? All these activists, nobody will take notes? I'll try. I got one over here.
Way to go, man. Way to go.
Technology.
Did I get it right? Jones? All right, and before I get started, a couple of brief pieces of news. Well, let me ask that question Ernie asked again. How many are new, first time at the Breakfast Club? Wow. And how many are here because you got that email of mine? And the rest of you who didn't get the email, if you put your email on a scrap of paper or a napkin, I'll add you to the list and you'll know about these kind of things. There's all sorts of good stuff going on, and I send it around on something called Page 9. The page isn't in the newspaper that has the truth. All right, are you guys capable of withstanding a joke? Does free speech cover that in here? Should I take a chance on this one? There's a bad one.
Go for it, come on.
I don't do political correct. There's this little Muslim boy lost in the mall and he's crying. And a clerk comes over and says, "What's the matter, son?" And he goes, "I lost my mommy. I don't know where my mommy is." And the clerk says, "Well, that's okay. We'll find her for you. What does she look like?" And he says, "How the fuck should I know?" Only in the breakfast. A couple of small pieces of news. As you guys may know, some of you, we put up billboards all over the city. These are at bus stops. Guns save lives, educate your kids, go to trainmeaz.com. The city of Phoenix tore them down. We had an $11,000 contract with CBS Outdoor to put them up. They were up for about 9 days, and the city tore them down. We're suing them. Only because the Goldwater Institute stepped up and said, this is a free speech issue, not a gun issue, and we can make good law on this. So they stepped up, they're running the suit. I have no capacity to sue the city, who will defend against us with our tax money, but that's the way it goes. I think we'll get them up. The papers have been filed, it's going back and forth, it's a long, slow process. If you're on my email list, you'll get updates as that moves forward. And we do have other billboards up that aren't city run. I've got a few copies. Anybody want a copy of the billboards we have? Some hands. All right? First come, first served. There's maybe 4 or 5. These guys are eager. You can download it on the web. Okay, we're getting close. In fact, I think we're there. Oh, I have some giveaways. You guys want some giveaways? Yeah. Everything? Yeah, I'll trade you silver dimes for 9mm. One of the things that the Train Me Arizona program did was make a map of where you can go shooting in Arizona. A gun map. There. He's got his hand up. They're only if it's free. Take one. They're $5 and I'm giving them away. That's as many as I got. Well, now he wants to bring the map back to me and get a refund. Capitalism gone berserk. All right. I also have these I'll give away. These just came out last week. Who wants to help? There you go. Half down that side. What is it? Half down this side. It's a new catalog of ours. I'm required to give it away because I got to eat. Thank you. Probably not enough for everybody because of the size of the crowd. I gave out what I had. I don't think I'll say anymore. Now, you can go to gunlaws.com and they're available online, or find me because I give them away when I speak. How many people in here think that the United States is facing some sort of a collapse? It's already happened. Is there anybody who doesn't think we're facing a collapse?
Define collapse.
Oh, that's the next step. That's why she's got a pad. Not a single person doesn't think we're facing it. This is going to be a tough room. What do we mean by collapse? That's the first question. What we're going to do here is soak the information you guys have right out into the open, because there's more knowledge in this room than there is up at the podium, I can guarantee you that. So here's the subject. Pundits everywhere seem to be warning of a coming collapse. Social, government, civil unrest, jihad. Is there any chance they're correct? Everybody just said yes. Unanimous. There isn't one person in here who doesn't. What do you mean by a collapse? we're not going to go too deeply into dystopian science fiction, okay? We're not talking about the Book of Eli, Escape from New York, Soylent Green, Logan's Run. It was actually pretty cool. They had some kind of Get High in that movie that everybody wanted. How about the road? How about the what? The road.
Where we're going, there aren't any roads.
Bernie's convinced of that. Some people are a little less convinced. So when you say a collapse, everybody in here thinks we're facing a collapse. What is that? And we're going to do this talking stick style. One person at a time. I'll recognize you to keep order. If somebody wants to shout out, I'll tolerate it to a limit. And if you go into dystopian science fiction too deeply, I'm ready for you. All right? What's a collapse?
I've been teaching it for 3 years. I got my own website on it. I'm the economist in the real estate division. We all know what's happening in real estate. Values are going down for the first time in some 50 years. The debt is staying up. So what we have is an upside down situation. That's a collapse, and it's happening all around the country.
I'm going to have to be able to reduce that to a name for this thing. You're saying
I'm saying values, which is the key to economics. Values, everything has a value. Everything that you look at here has a value. If values go down and you've got debt on those items, and that debt doesn't go down, you can be upside down very quickly on any asset.
I'm not even sure how to write that down. Let me hold that thought.
Okay.
How about the collapse is enough of the populace are understanding the Ponzi scheme that is being perpetrated on them?
Well, that's part of it.
All right, so, Joni, public awareness of the Ponzi scheme. That's not quite a collapse in my mind yet.
I'd say a symptom, an example would be the long gas lines we had in 73 and 78. But these lines would be at grocery stores, and it would be difficult to do our normal daily routine.
Shortage of consumer supply.
That's the symptom.
How's that? Yes.
That would be due to the transportation system falling apart.
Not destruction, loss of transportation system.
I think it's in different areas: economic, falling apart, political, social, religious. It's all become scams by people's egos, and it's being destroyed. And I think the population is going to give up on the whole concept, and it'll be over.
Loss of social structure.
Social, economic, political, religious, and I'm missing one: educational. What's the point?
Well,
Getting college
educate
when
what
you can't
education
get a job?
system?
Yeah, you know, the whole society.
All of you have been talking about collapses, and this gentleman just said it pretty much in a nutshell, a little bit elaborated. We're talking about collapse of civilization.
Yes.
A
A
collapse of-
civilization collapse as we know it,
Yeah.
that we've set up and been running for the last 150 years. And we've got to reinvent and reorganize our whole structural civilization, government, social, the whole nine
Okay,
yards.
so a collapse of civilization, which I want to get a little more specific.
It
on that.
doesn't, we won't really see it end. Life will go on, just like it did for the Roman Empire. It went on, but the way we have it now is not sustainable, and it
Okay,
will
so
collapse.
gradual loss of civilization, the frog in the pan and you heat the water and the
I would
frog
add
doesn't
to
know
that-
until it's frog soup.
It's happening already.
Well, Ernie, you gave that speech. We
No,
understand.
it's already in the Middle East, Central America. It's when people are hungry. And it's gonna come to America.
So let's write down starvation. That would that's a real collapse of people starving. Frank.
It never left.
Since the world is now, it's one world, and we can communicate instantly around the world. We have a disparity, particularly in wages from one country, one area to another. Some way that has to equalize out. The wages in this country are gonna go down, or the wages in the other country are gonna go up, and it has to equalize economically.
Well, that's moving towards what's the solution. I want to get out what the collapse really is. Yes.
It's the loss of all faith and respect for our government.
Loss of faith in government. Boy, that would sure
Fun.
Fun. For some of us, yes. Louder.
Hunger, like Ernie said, hunger
Right?
and emotional breakdown and the loss of safety.
Down. You mean everybody runs around depressed? We can give them Valium. I mean, what's the matter?
Depressed, angry, uncontrolled.
Widespread anger. All right, widespread anger.
Violence.
Keith back there.
Did somebody talk about the Federal Reserve note, based upon commodities, that they're almost inflationary, like Zimbabwe or something like that, so.
Zimbabwe. All right, so let's call that loss of value in fiat money. Right? If fiat money becomes worthless, that would be a collapse. I have here in front of me a $100 trillion note from Zimbabwe. 100 trillion. And these sell for less than the $1 billion notes because those are scarce and there's a lot of these floating around. I'll send this around, but I want it back. It's in a plastic sleeve. Don't take it out.
I'll trade it when I get it for my Tennessee dime.
Don't send it over to that side of the table. All right, the collapse. I want to get it out. We haven't even gotten to any of the good stuff. I want these back too, but I'm loaded for bear. Yes.
I'd say one aspect would be ever increasing unemployment. Jobs are basically vanishing.
Right. So that's what we had in the Great Depression. So massive unemployment.
Right.
That would certainly do it.
Cut in Social Security by 50% as it took place in Greece day before yesterday.
Say that again?
A 50% cut in Social Security as it took place in Greece for their austerity program.
Okay, so let's say Social Security cut in half. I'm not sure that would be a collapse. That might precipitate one. So how many people in here are on Social Security? Quite a bunch. So you get half as much money. That would make you hungry and pissed and angry. But I don't know that that's a collapse per se. Yes?
When the political, economic, social, and religious systems cease functioning.
I think we got that already. Social systems break down.
Political, economic, social, and religious.
And I think somebody made that same list of where the arenas are. Political, social, economic, and religious.
Is he supposed to be writing this stuff down?
No, she is, and she's doing a good job, I can tell.
I thought you were the guy.
I offered it.
Yeah, well,
It wasn't fast enough.
you weren't pretty enough.
It's fun ball.
Am I allowed to say that?
I think the loss of these collapse will come when the government owns everything and all the people have nothing, the government controls everything. And that's what's happening right now.
Loss of private property rights.
There you go. Yes.
Now, that's a collapse. If the government steps up and takes away your property, completely socializes private property in America, I don't know how they could get there.
401ks, there they go.
Taxes.
401ks, let's talk about that for 1 second. We talked about fiat money, the paper money that's extremely valuable that you all use to buy your breakfast and it works real well despite Ernie's rant. Paper money retains a value. Digital money, your 401k, you don't own anything. You have digits in hyperspace, right? That's all it is, a piece of paper that says you have digits in hyperspace. If that resets to zero, what are you going to do? You think about that. All this money you have saved, that you think you have saved in your 401k, that's digital money. Yes, the cameraman.
An example of what's happening is when foreign governments can control certain property within the confines of the United States, like the Chinese in Idaho.
That is a really good one. Loss of sovereignty. Loss of sovereignty. If we stop being, you want my attention.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me let you know what this court thing for Ernie is back here in New Hampshire.
Is that related to this, or do you want to make that announcement at the end? All right. You got an announcement on something else.
Yeah. Well, it's related to them going to court.
Go ahead, make it brief.
You got a pencil? Because you need to write this down. You will not ever be convicted if you take these steps. First of all, don't go beyond that barrier.
Doesn't work.
Huh?
Next. Second.
Well, The next thing is that you have to make sure that you're on the record. When you're on the record, then you say this: I'm a beneficiary of the trust, and I appoint you, Judge, as my trustee. And I want you to discharge these allegations made against me and eliminate the record. Then if you had any, if you were beat or you spent any time in jail, then you say, furthermore, in redemption, I want reimbursed 1,000, 10,000, and then just give you the check.
Okay, what do you say? Does he earn a softball or not?
Yes. That's
I understand what you're talking about, and that's another issue. And in fact, we do have some people in here doing that very thing and
Right.
walking it through.
Right.
You know, it's really just a check off the box to say when you can.
Okay, back to the collapse.
I think it's a
What do we mean when we
combination
say a
of
collapse?
what several people in here have said, which is that yes, the various institutions may cease to function or function effectively, but in combination with that, as someone else mentioned, when the people lose faith in those institutions, those two things combined is when nothing works. And when nothing works, I think defines the collapse.
So loss of individual institutions and then loss of faith in the institutions, and I think you're talking about government. You're not talking about loss
Both government,
of faith in
financial,
food supply.
everything. You know.
Okay, Karen.
Laws are ignored. Laws are ignored.
Anarchy.
Ding, 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 ding.
Save the ammo.
Down here somewhere. Anarchy, loss of faith in laws, like in Mexico, where everybody drives through the red and green lights as if they weren't there, and everything else that goes with it. I would say if we hit a point like that, we've got a collapse on our hands, yes.
Well, I think the biggest wake-up call for people is going to be the collapse of the infrastructure. They're not going to get any electricity, they're not going to get any water, they're not going to get any fuel delivered.
Okay, so
the whole distribution system in the United States is basically based on just-in-time, which means anything that interrupts the flow of goods and services, even momentarily, we're going to be out of it.
All right, there's a big one. That's loss of utilities. We'll put them all in one bag, loss of utilities. But he also brought up another one that's really important. Disruption of the supply chain. Disruption of the supply chain. Food, clothing, Tampax. You know about Ernie's supply of Tampax?
No, tampons.
Sorry, tampons. What do I know? Tampons. You know about this? He figures when the collapse comes, all menstruating women will have to go to Ernie. Because he's got an attic full of these things. I don't need, so he might be stuck on this. Okay, yes.
Yeah, get you thinking, doesn't it?
He already cornered the market, you know.
This country was founded on the idea of one nation, under God. When it gets to the point where the people administering it, the government stuff, it's under us, that we're property of the state, it's over. And then all the rest fits in with that, the freedom, property ownership is gone, because it all belongs to the state.
Well, you got a lot of
One
name, but
nation under God, and
godlessness.
we've been flipping God off since 1962, Madeline Murray O'Hara Supreme Court decision.
Good.
Speak for yourself on that one, but godlessness.
Ever since
You have to
then,
have
we're going
everybody
down,
abandon the
down,
church, even the Muslims, and that's obviously going to happen soon. In the corner.
Confiscation of firearms.
Ooh, confiscation of firearms. That would certainly precipitate some pretty heavy-duty stuff. And then you're talking about a police state, right? Institution of a police state or martial law, right? Yes.
It'll be loss of faith and trust in each other.
Yeah.
Because when there's total fear and you don't feel you can trust anybody, I think that's the end.
That's a pretty good one. Fear of your neighbors. Right? And if there's disruption of supply and you need a little water and you come over to my house, I'm going to tell you I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not going to give you a gallon of my water. How much water can you store? How much water do you guys think you should store? Throw out numbers.
10,000.
20,000 gallons. 10,000 gallons. That's your pool. Little point about a pool. A pool becomes a liability really quickly if this kind of stuff happens. because without the filters and the chemicals, it becomes a cesspool pretty quick. And you may have a water filtration system, it'll help a little bit, but the pool is not the great savior you might think it is. So how much water? Somebody said 6 months? We'll get to, who said 6 months? That's dystopian. If there's no water for 6 months, it's beyond collapse. After a week of no water to the society, forget it. People will be killing each other, roaming around in the streets. It'll be a disaster. Yes, in the back.
I think it's going to be two things when it comes down to a time of collapse. Is you're going to have, because what it's going to basically happen is you're going to have that self-preservation switch kick off on everybody. And it's going to, those each individual is going to go down two separate paths. You're either going to go the high road or the low road. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. And the people that go the high road are going to eventually get together, because it's not going to be like friendships, family dissolve when all this happens. I mean, people are going to end up banding together out of self-preservation.
Well, that gets into the solutions, which we're going to do next, and the extended family may come back, is what you're implying here. Yes?
In my opinion, for me, a large part of it would be loss of rights and freedoms.
Loss of rights and freedoms. Well, we're already there. How much more loss of rights and freedoms do you need?
But you still got some of them left, and when the rest of them are gone, kind of summing up a nutshell of a lot of them.
No, they're in government scope. Don't worry about it.
Loss of rights and freedoms. That's interesting, because that happened so gradually. If you look at what the founders intended and what we have today, I mean, the Constitution used to say no capitation, no per head tax. They took that out, and now everybody's got to report everything they do to the feds. How much loss of freedom can you have? You own guns, but you can't carry them pretty much everywhere you'd like to. You've got to unload, deload.
You don't own it. You got to pay property tax on it. So property.
And you don't own property. You just rent it from the government.
Yeah, basically, the automobile, you got to pay registration on it. You don't really own that.
So how much more loss of rights would we be in collapse? We're not in fact, loss of rights. I'll make a prediction here.
When they take away their TVs.
He
deserves a ball. I'll take that one.
I'm going to make a wild prediction here that I don't know if I believe in, but loss of rights will have no effect on a collapse. The United States will keep going with a nearly total loss of rights. They'll let you say things because it's harmless. You have no control. But how many rights do you really have left? You have a right against illegal search and seizure. No. You have a right to privacy, that your cell phones that Ernie mentioned all have tracking devices now, or will very soon. They'll know exactly. The feds argued in court for a right to search based on mapping your travels from your iPod and your tablet, and saying it shows a pattern that could lead to illegal activity. So there will be absolutely no way to prevent illegal search and seizure. I don't know if loss of rights will be a factor. I'm going to think about that. What else? What's a collapse? Yes?
How many in here think the collapse is going to happen before the end of 2012?
Oh, short
You
term.
got to define the collapse. When you say United States, what do you mean United States? The government, the people, the geographic area? You got to define all these terms.
Well, that's part of what we're doing here, Ernie. We're going to try and figure that out. The thing I really want to get to is this. If there is some sort of a collapse, and we haven't even gotten to the really big ones, let's put jihad on that list, okay? If a jihad is actually waged against the United States here on our soil, all bets are off. How about pestilence? Nobody threw in pestilence. I have a story right here I thought was interesting in that regard.
So you're saying the government or anybody comes up with some Muslim guy laying waste with an AK in a mall, all of a sudden all bets are off, freedoms are gone, it's jihad? They call something jihad, we're done, that's it?
No, I mean, if anywhere you go, there's a chance of Muslims shooting at you like you have in Afghanistan and Pakistan. I mean, a real active war right here, class warfare between religious groups, actively pursued. Right now, it's not. Right now, jihad is something you see in the newspaper and a bomb that went off overseas. One bomb over here killing 9 people would be news for 2 weeks.
Alan,
right over there, it's 2 stories a day.
Alan, I'm sorry, we wouldn't have to worry about that if we'd stop backing up Israel and all their bad ideas, for God's sake.
Well, and we got police laying waste to people all over the country. That doesn't count.
It hasn't reached the point of collapse. Things are still pretty cool. Hold your thought. Europe's E. coli is a deadly superbug. You remember seeing this in the paper June 3rd?
So is the
Scientists on Thursday linked Europe's worst outbreak of food poisoning on record to a super toxic strain of E. coli bacteria that is brand new. Suspicion has fallen on raw tomatoes. Suspicion has fallen on raw tomatoes.
Yes.
Cucumbers and lettuce is the source of the germ. Research has been unable, which has killed at least 180,000 people, sickened more than 2.2 million, and spread to at least 10 European nations. Now, I lied on the numbers. It's only 18 dead, not 180,000, and only 1,600 sickened. But this could say 2 million. It doesn't have to be E. coli. This would foment the collapse. If we end up with a genetically modified or naturally evolved bug, then we're not sitting in this room having this conversation. We're hanging out in our houses, hunkered down.
Waiting for mandatory vaccinations.
We already got
Mercury.
Let's put things in perspective about it. You know, we've got people living, let's say we have people living an average of 100 years, just to keep the numbers round. So that means, we got 300 million people in this country, right? That means every 100 years, 300 million people have to die. That comes out to what? 3 million people a year, on average? 3 to 4 million people. It's actually lower than 100. So, you know, the whole point is this: that when 6,000 people or 3,000 people died in 9/11, we thought that was in a collapse then. But the reality is, on average, 3 to 4 million people have to die each year. So, you know, let's not get scared of the big numbers. The reality is that you could have a stadium blown up by the jihadists. It still will not mean that there'd be a collapse.
I think the collapse gets more to some of the things we had earlier about loss of confidence, fear of your neighbor.
Fear. And that's the thing you can
When
easily
that
control.
fear spreads.
Each individual can control that fear.
I think it's
There's
good
also
theory
a-
until it happens to you or your family.
I've had hardship in my life.
No,
I've had tragedy in my
Murders,
life.
innocent people being murdered in your families?
I've had hardship in my life. I know what
That's
tragedy
No,
is.
we're not talking hardships, we're talking about.
I've had tragedy. And I've had
No, we're not
tragedy.
talking about tragedy.
Yeah, you
No,
are.
what you're talking about is a moral obligation that someone would have then to impose their will on others or take their money or their freedoms or whatever perceived security they think they're going to get. That's what's happened over the last decade. That's what's the rocket sled to the collapse because of that attitude.
The collapse. See, there's a distinction that we can draw here between individual tragedy and personal problems and localized problems. Cincinnati's having riots. It's not a collapse yet. It's when across the nation you're afraid to drive anywhere because people will pull you out of your car to get you water or your ammo.
Alan, in conjunction with your contention that the supply chain will break down and there's dangers of widespread diseases, they
Not a
have,
contention, a list of possibilities because we're trying to figure out what this problem is and we don't know real well.
with the potential of the breakdown of supply chain and these foodborne diseases, there's a chance that we'll have not only mad cow, but mad pig, mad chicken, mad whatever.
Mad Pat.
Fluoride, chemtrails.
Speaking of what would lead to collapse, you have a number of things that are going on in the heartland right now. Missouri flooding and Mississippi flooding, drought in Texas.
All right.
We have a major, like I said, catastrophe in our farming community. Where are we eating right now?
Okay, so natural disaster, I thought would come up right away. You know, something generated by global whining. Somebody said nuclear. Now, as in the past, failure of a nuke plant makes a lot of noise, but nothing happens. They still live by 3 Mile Island, the Fukushima plant. Did I pronounce that correctly? The plant, all right, so you can't eat the whales near the shore over there. I mean, that's not a collapse. It's not even news. But nuclear blast in the middle of the United States. Anybody who drove here from Illinois, if Chicago disappears,
there goes Ron.
You're not going to want to see people with a car full of goods coming in from Illinois if something goes off over there, and then you have the fear factor they were talking about. Yes.
I would say it's unlikely we're going to have a collapse without a financial collapse. That has to be the catalyst.
So let's talk about a financial collapse for a minute. that's a pretty general term, a complete loss of faith and fear. That will certainly do it. You won't be able to go into a grocery store. But we haven't seen bank collapse yet in this room. And here's where we really do face a problem. If the banks, one bank starts and the rest go like dominoes, then you won't be able to slide your card. You won't be able to get your money out. They might not even be open. And let me give you a horrifying idea of how this could happen. It's payday. There's a little bank in Cleveland. Everybody's online to cash their paycheck, and the bank runs out of cash. They just didn't have enough around. It was a heavy week. They run out of cash. Everybody gets on their cell phones, calls their spouse, and says, honey, there's no money left in the bank. And by the time the call reaches me, 3 phone calls later, the banks are all out of money. They're closing down. It'll be like crazy wildfire panic. The people in the bank will run to the other branches. People will see them ring, and what's that called? A run on the banks. And that could happen like this. One mistake in Cleveland, and then they'll declare a bank holiday. The banks won't be open. The ATM cards won't work. All the plastic in your wallet won't get you anything. The grocery store won't be able to sell you anything because the registers don't work. So now you're looking at real serious collapse problem that you have to prepare for. Now you could walk in with cash if you have some and pick out a bunch of goods that are worth $18 and change and give them $20 that they'll put in a cigar box if you're lucky and walk out with some goods. While everybody around you is grabbing stuff and running out the door because the cameras are off and they figure it's me and mine, I'm not taking this chance. That's the kind of financial collapse you're talking about. Bank holiday for a month.
I think in the Bank of America account agreement, you have to give them up to either 5 or 7 days if you want to take out more than $2,000 of your own money.
You're kidding. Is anybody else aware of that? The bank won't let you take out more than $2,000.
What's their option? Not they won't. If they want to, they could.
Well, they put it in there for some reason.
Right.
To limit a run on the banks. So you have what you had in the Jimmy Stewart movie, and everybody takes out $1,999.99. And that won't last very long either. Yes?
Yeah, Alan, you just made the government's case for doing away with paper money.
Ooh.
You got electronic currency, no problem, you never run out.
But that gets down to the problem of gradual loss of rights. If they decide that for the children's sake, we have to get rid of paper money, for whatever excuse they use, you'll just use your cards and they'll be in complete control of that.
That's right.
And then Ernie's gold and silver will make a lot of sense.
Except
there'll be a black market.
Except that July 5th, this month, you no longer buy gold and silver on the market exchange or whatever the hell it is.
What?
Yeah.
Unless you are specifically authorized by the government and you got your hand in the pockets of, you are not allowed starting within a couple of weeks. But I think
you were not allowed what?
To trade gold and silver on the commodity exchange or something.
Gold and silver future. You can still go to the coin shop and buy gold and silver.
Yes, you can.
Still now.
Gold and silver. Forex sent out an email saying that as of July 15th, they will no longer be carrying over-the-counter transactions with silver.
But I can still go into my gold dealer or my coin shop and buy gold.
For now.
So what is it I can't do? I can't do something that I'm not doing?
No. This is what is required to get that silver to the dealer. You know, they're not starting the individual. They start way down the line, working their way.
They're breaking the supply chain.
Sooner or later, this is going to get to where all of a sudden it's going to be like your bank run holiday thing, and Monday it's going to be a different denomination. They're already working on it. It's called security deposit
Special
IMF crap. And then it's going to go from this threat of the Amero straight to the world. This is not going to happen. It's already happening. It's going on in Europe right now.
Well, I can tell you what happens in Everett with my family.
Yeah, go ahead.
Several times they close everything down and tell people to wait. So people have this has happened more than once. If the banks freeze up, you can't get to anything for a while, and they come back with denominated money, devalued money.
Where was this?
In Ecuador.
And Chile, and Argentina, and Mexico,
and
and Greece.
But about the banks, lots of banks have gone, I don't know, I don't know if you understand, are aware that a lot of banks have said, or government or the justice system assigns them to the bigger banks.
So you're talking about a gradual or immediate government takeover of social facilities like banks, financial institutions, supply, and that's not going to be a collapse, folks. That's just going to be a police state. You're going to smile and be happy because the TV will be on, the beer will be cold, you'll be able to come here for $27 instead of $8, but you'll be able to earn more than $8 because the money will be so worthless. You'll take a job for $50 an hour as a janitor.
Yeah.
Right? And we will inflate our way into and out of a problem. I don't see inflation unless it's insane like who's got the $100 million bill? Is it still going around?
Yeah, I got it. You didn't get it until I get my
Who didn't get to see it? All right, I want you
Are you
all to go
confused with
pound
someone
on
here?
this. Go pound on your head. I love capitalism and free markets.
No, value me. That's one for Quinn.
You gotta watch out.
Here's the idea.
So hyperinflation, yes.
Here's some 100,000 mark notes from 1923. That's what they did in Germany.
Oh, the Weimar Republic.
Yeah.
That has no relevance
Within
at all.
yeah, it does. The same thing. Within a year, this was $1 trillion.
Wait. One at a time.
With 1 year, this was $1 trillion. They were handing these out. You had to take a wheelbarrow of these to buy bread.
Yeah, but that's burning them for heat.
Yeah.
You know,
why does it not? I bet you why does that not?
97% of the transactions that you and I do are done digitally. Only 4% of the total circulation of funds is paper and coins.
That could change.
96%, no, it isn't going to change. It's gone the other way. We've gone from basically 97% paper and coins to now 4%, and 97% is done with credit cards and digital transactions.
So as long as it's 100 trillion in electronic digits, it's okay? I mean,
No, all I'm saying is the paper isn't going to be out there. The entire banking system can be shut down with pulling the plugs on the computers. So basically, we have a whole different situation today than we had back in Weimar, where they were printing paper. In fact, our Treasury Secretary went over there and helped print that paper.
Let's mention something about the Weimar Republic inflation. There was never a situation where you needed a wheelbarrow of paper to get a loaf of bread. That was a propaganda photograph. The same photograph circulated everywhere. It made a point, and they inflated like Zimbabwe did and Weimar did, and we could see the same. I'm a big fan of fiat money. I think paper money is a pretty good deal. Could it go down this way? Okay. Paper money is a pretty good deal while you have faith, while you have confidence. It works just great. Pulling around silver or gold, if you've ever done that, and I used to trade gold, this stuff's heavy, cumbersome, easily stolen in large dollar amounts for small physical quantity. So we'll see if we get there. I'm a little bit skeptical on that one. Yes, in the back.
I would just say that from what I've studied and my angle is that for hyperinflation to occur, not only is the government printing money, but for it to happen like Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe, that money has to get into the people's hands, meaning that the government has to be printing it, which means it's a welfare state or type of like, you know, getting money for like unemployment or something that we would have in modern times. That money has to go directly into the population to be spent to be hyperinflated. What we have today is inflation of currency, but it's being transferred to the banks and it's being stored up in them. They're hoarding the money. So we have a rise in prices because the value of dollars is increasing, but our wages and our income, we aren't getting like unemployment or extra benefits. Our wages are being declining.
I'm not sure I can reach that far, but I appreciate the discussion of economics. I have a theory about economics that I presented to a couple economic geniuses. Nobody understands economics.
Oh, I could give me 5 seconds.
You got, yeah, give it back to her. You got
the world runs on economics.
You think it does, but nobody understands it. You got Keynesians, you got Austrian school, they both swear they're right, they both have their math and their geniuses and their papers, they're diametrically opposed, and nobody knows which one's right. Just put that up and think about.
5
Nobody
seconds.
really understands.
Every
economics.
single thing is worth exactly what somebody else will pay for it.
Well, I'll agree with pieces of free market and capitalism and how the world turns, but I'll stand by that statement. We'll have that discussion another time. We want to find a collapse, not the nature of the economic trends within complex industries and systems. Yes?
Yeah, nobody's mentioned a possible shutdown of the internet. That would spoil a lot
All
of
right,
things.
now we're getting there. End of the internet. If you didn't have internet, the social fabric, would be in a state of collapse. Youngsters today are, you ever heard the term screen addiction? Look at Michael Kielski. We're having a meeting here. What's he doing? He's looking at a screen. You, by the way, should have gotten a half a ball. He's almost done the whole. Kids today, and the guy over here is going like this, and the girl over there is going, ha, and texting him back, and they go back and forth from screen to screen. They don't know what it is to be in a room with other human beings and relate. And then when they're done with the screen, they watch some TV. And then they go on their computer, then they go back to this. Screen addiction. And the way we communicate, the way we've gotten around the networks, we used to have a stranglehold on news, is the internet. So that would shut down and you'd be isolated. I don't know that that's a collapse, but that isolation would be terrible. The government knows it. There's only 13 nodes in the United States that they have to shut down and turn the internet off, and they can do it. Yes, in the green.
I think the collapse is largely in the mind, as in it can be staved off. The final actual event that would bring it on is loss of hope. Not just loss of faith, but people sitting down, thinking they're hiding and sort of just taking and taking it over. That would be the final event that would do us in.
Okay. So once again, loss of faith, fear, and social problem. You're standing. You have something you really want to say. Is that right?
I'm digging the keys out of my pocket.
Somebody throw this at him. He's too far away.
Enlightening.
We've got a lot of the big ones.
I got one here. I think the collapse will happen when there's no football or basketball on TV.
That must be this year.
This beer supply runs out.
End to bread and circuses. An end to bread and circuses. That would foment the collapse. Now, we've got a lot of the big ones out. I'll get to you in 1 second. If there's something we missed, I'm going to compile a list, and I'll get a copy to Ernie. If you want a copy of the list, remember, secure email in readable fashion on a napkin or something and give it to me. And I'll make sure you get the list that we've developed, plus the ones that came out of groups far smarter than the people in here. Yes.
I think the whole thing can be summed up by saying life as we know it no longer exists.
Life as we know it. So that's called Teotwatki. Anybody ever hear that acronym, Teotwatki? Go Google that. You can spell it. The end of the world as we know it. Teotwatki. Yes. I don't think, by the way, somebody throw a ball at him, would you? That's science fiction. In all the disasters that befall in the world, it has never really gotten down to a zombie apocalypse.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying life as we know it. Banking, you mentioned the food supply, the transportation, where you can travel free, your religious right to worship where you want, when you want. All of that summed up together is life as we know it today. Right now, you can get in your car and drive home without being hassled. When that no longer is available to you, life as you know it is no longer the same.
Well,
that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a Mad Max scenario.
Okay.
In the event, civil liberties.
In the event of a complete collapse of some sort, you'd end up with that.
Yeah.
The idea of going to the store to buy food, sending your kid off to school, driving anywhere you want in America and getting more gas as you go, a collapse would lead us to that. In a minute, we're going to get to how do we fix this, or more important, how do we protect ourselves? And let me put that in a slightly different way. What would you do today that you wish you had done after the collapse that you can't do anymore after the collapse?
Yeah, silver.
How do you,
Food silver, man.
how do you read a newspaper? How do you read a newspaper from 9 months from now, after whatever it is goes down, and go, oh, why didn't I think of this ahead of time? I should have. And that's what I want to get to, and that's why we're here today.
Tampons.
Tampons. And you trade whiskey for tampons. In fact, so does everybody.
Folks.
When the ordinary person realizes that the government is not all powerful, and they see the government being unable to supply anything.
Okay, so loss of faith in government.
Katrina.
I think we have that.
Minnesota right now, they shut down all.
Loss of faith in government. Although if you're an anarchist or an anarcho-capitalist or a libertarian, see I got the word right, libertarian, you're looking for that. You want them to close down and let us operate without them, and there's nobody to collect taxes, so you keep all your money. You still go to work and make widgets because people want to buy widgets, and you still drive your truck to deliver tomatoes, and things work and the government kind of goes away. That might not be so bad. In the back, 2 or 3 more, and then I want to get to the solution. We'll run out of time.
Yeah, what you touched on earlier about the internet, I think right now in the beginning that we're starting to see the beginnings of it with the with these 2 hacker groups, LuxSex and also Anonymous. I mean, I don't think the government will ever be able to take down the internet because at this time, I mean, there's back pages in the internet that no one can even monitor or surveil. So we're already seeing the beginnings of the people more or less taking back control of the internet.
So let's call that hack the world. That's what the hackers talk about. Hack the world. And I think the government could take control of that, but maybe not.
I speak from experience. Anonymous is very good at what they do. I know people, I have connections, I've spoken with people that have worked with Anonymous. They are very good at what they do. I know you say there are 13 nodes. Anonymous is actually in the process, from what I've heard, of building their own node.
So you get that with a smart bomb. Yes.
There, a lot of people, we cover a lot of future technology and stuff on Freedom Speech, and I'll tell you, you're so concerned about the internet as you know it now, to where Pal Gamble just did a story on space travel, commercial, private space travel. Elon Musk, just one example, just one of many. Elon Musk, that started PayPal and got his gazillion dollars, has created a Falcon named after the Millennium Falcon of Star Wars system. The reason the U.S. government is able to stop the shuttle is because he's the one that's going to be ferrying supplies and astronauts.
Okay, wait a minute.
Now, let me finish. No. This means, and we knew, that we are going to be able to put up our own satellites separate from government and create our own internet that has nothing to do with this one, and there's nothing they can do about it.
I'm going to run out of balls on this guy. All right.
Particle beam weapons.
We missed a few, but I think we have the most important ones. What's the most important one?
Self-replicating carbonating nanobots.
Come on!
Last thing all night long.
Wait. Joni, zombie attack.
The minds of the young people are being taken over. They're becoming robots. They're not learning really anything in their institutions, supposedly. And so I think they're destroying the thinking process of a lot of us. A lot of people my age are like robots, man.
So let's put down, dumb down the population. Dumb down the population.
Oh, that's right. I think
I'm not sure that's a collapse. Okay. In fact, maybe we should take a break for a few minutes so everybody can yak, and then we'll come back together. Class warfare. You don't have to write these down. These are some that I've gathered, and I'll add them to the list. Class warfare. Destruction of the meaningfulness of language, which they're working on right now. Devalued currency we got, supply chains. Dissolution of the union. Secession, invasion, emergence of a dictator. Imagine that. Federal government insolvency. We didn't really look at that. The guy isn't being paid, so they don't go out and do their work, some of which is valuable. So, an international boycott. Everybody decides to boycott us. which they can do based on disease. I mean, if you heard that Greece all of a sudden, you wouldn't be going to a Greek restaurant, buying anything Greek, and who cares about the Greeks?
I would.
Many of these others we got. Man-made disaster, massive inflation, destruction of the medical system. No medicines available, no hospitals open. You know what that would do in a short period of time? Okay.
Save lives.
There's a lot of things. What was that?
Save lives, he said.
Yeah.
Save lives.
If the hospitals are shut down, more people might hear it.
Oh, you guys are skeptics. Well, here's where we're heading with this, I believe.
Listen up. Listen up.
This is from a book called The End of Influence. Any student of history knows that no nation stays on top forever, according to Bruce Bartlett and Forbes. You know, they never just say something. They got to attribute it so it's real. So some guy with a typewriter said that. The end of influence, what happens when other countries have the money. Berkeley economists Stephen Cohen and Brad DeLong argue that America's economic reign won't end in a sudden collapse. Rather, it will be a steady downward slide such as that in Britain following World War I, brought on by the rise of countries such as China. That's a typo. That should say communist China. Right? Remember Red China? Chi-coms, the guys who want to destroy us and still do?
The guys in Idaho.
Brought on by the rise of countries such as communist China, it will be exacerbated by the lingering effects of the Great Recession. The authors depict the unraveling of American primacy in a rational, non-alarmist manner, devoid of doomsday scenarios, which you guys did a pretty good job of staying away from because you knew I was armed. According to Richard Pachter in the Miami Herald, though it wouldn't be true if he didn't say it. I'm a media skeptic. How many of you think the news media is 100% accurate?
Freedom speech.
The media.
I'm going to pass that party out. I'm just going to pass these so people can look at them. I want it back.
I'll tell you what, for everybody who keeps one of these, you can keep one of Ernie's coins. I want these back too. The media, as you know, is leading you down the wrong path. And they're doing it in such subtle ways. I'm going to digress here for one moment. They're doing it in such subtle ways you don't even realize it's happening. They talk about insurgents instead of Islamic jihadists. They cover and hide everything going on. They talk about assault weapons. Some of you may have heard me say this before. Your brain is so turned off by this that you don't realize assault is a kind of behavior.
Yes.
It's not a kind of hardware. But they keep saying assault weapon, and so you figure assault weapon. Assault's a kind of behavior. This happens in the news at every turn. And there's a group in Washington, there's actually a bunch of groups that are working on it. Accuracy in media.
Oh, God.
What?
Accuracy in media, so you're still shilling for the Fox News people now? Jesus. What? I said you're still shilling for the Fox News people now? That's what I said.
If you don't like accuracy in media, there's, what do you call it? The Media Research Center.
We're listening, there was just one voice that's shooting it down. The rest are listening.
AIM.org. It's there watching the media, and if you want to try and fix it, you can gang up on them by getting involved, get on their free newsletter list. I'm passing out a flyer for them now. But the media is deceiving us at every turn. That's what page 9 is about. How many of you get page 9? Woohoo! And I take the stories they give you and I look at them with the third eye, right? That's what a journalist is supposed to do. And it says the White House announced today. The White House is a building. It's a building. You can't make an announcement. Who's responsible for that? Is there any reporting in a story that starts out, Department of Education announced today that, and half the stories start that way, and there's nobody else looking at it or talking about it. The media just has you snowed. These guys put out a newsletter that takes the main stories apart and opens your eyes. It's a really worthwhile thing. All right, I'm off that soapbox. Let me finish this about the gradual decline. America's standard of living may decline, but there could be benefits as we become just another country. The growth of trading partners would aid U.S. exporters, and the U.S. government that bears fewer of the globe's burdens may be better off to deal with its own domestic problems. If there's something of a collapse and the government is shrunk from this, and it happens gradually, which is what we're seeing, then there are benefits to that. We might be able to pull back from this precipice because things aren't running so well. We can't afford the military to be still in place. We have to stop giving Egypt $2 billion because we can't print the money that fast, and the $2 billion only buys you a pair of shoes. I mean, they're stealing our money so fast right now. I went into Walmart. They have a kind of sandal I like. It's a $90 Birkenstock sandal for $6.97. It's the exact same shoe, the same footbed that works for my foot. I went in yesterday, they were $15. So I earned $6.97 a year ago, and it would buy me a pair of shoes. Now, it won't buy me a half a pair of shoes. That's theft. That's coming from the government, and it's gradual. The other groups I've spoken to on this, or where we've looked at this situation, they're much more convinced that we're looking at a gradual decline, not an absolute collapse. But an absolute, we're in the gradual decline, as Ernie points out. We see it at every turn, although there's still an endless supply of bacon, so I'll bet you. And you'll buy ammunition at retail. So I don't think we're a police state yet. Although if you read Walter Mitty's Second Amendment, you might question that. How do you protect yourself from not an apocalyptic collapse, because all bets are off. If there's no more water, electricity, internet, gasoline, food, if we get to that point, then all bets are off, and I don't care how many tampons you have in your attic. So, how do you protect yourself from what might occur that is short of an Armageddon disaster? I mean, Armageddon disaster, is anybody going to argue for a bunker out where nobody knows where you are? Anybody go for that kind of stuff? What's your address again? Right, if you have a bunker, all you have to do is shoot the guy and take his stuff. That's easy.
Historically, people that lived on the creek had a better chance of survival because they could have their own food and distance.
So we're looking at solutions now, okay? One of the solutions is not to live in an urban area.
Right.
And how many of you are ready to move because you're convinced that Ernie's right and doomsday's coming?
Already did.
So look at that, all right. The weirder looking ones in the crowd, did you notice? That's a Marxist tactic. A Marxist tactic, right. You had one.
I was just going to say, more important than the tampons would be to have charcoal and barbecue sauce, because you have to eat what you kill.
I gave you those these catalogs. We sell we sell a lot of different books. We're actually the largest publisher and distributor of gun law books in the country. But with that comes related interests, and we have a handful of books on survival. And my favorite is Survive in Style, which says remember to take a pillow and a deck of cards, and, you know, survive in style. But there's Ragnar's Urban Survival. He has studied cities and municipalities that have gone into collapse, and he has how to hunt urban game, like squirrels, rabbits, more despicable creatures, how to avoid detection, how to get around quietly, you know, urban survival. That's pretty ugly. So, anybody have anything they want to do to prepare for what's coming?
Learn to make things.
Learn to make things. Boy, is that a good one. Develop a skill. If you don't have a skill, you know who's going to be the most valuable person in the world after a collapse? A handyman. A handyman. Do you have one on your block? Do you know who he is?
Yeah, it's getting more popular.
I can fix some things, but not a lot. Yes, ma'am.
I make soap, you all.
You make soap.
I make soap.
We make a crap load of organic eggs.
I think of all the things you could...
That we trade for her soap.
Of all the things you could stockpile, soap might be on the list, and things you can barter. Things you can barter. Now, I don't know how many tampons he's going to be moving, but
barbecue
I'll
sauce.
Toilet paper.
Yes.
I put in 11 fir trees, 6 grapevines, 75 tomato plants, 30 cucumber plants, on and on and on, in my urban backyard.
So a victory garden, one of the solutions of victory garden, but you need 2 years lead time on that, right?
And a green thumb.
And a green thumb, and water, and a lot of time and attention.
Right.
But that would certainly ameliorate some of the kinds of problems you're describing, yes?
I think one of the important things we're doing right here is
Speak up, please.
Like-minded people.
Louder.
Mingling with like-minded people like we're doing here, so when that day comes, we've already pre-screened each other.
So building up networks, or what's the phrase for that? Community organizing.
Acorn, yay.
Do you know all the people on your block? It's time to do that. I mean, in America, we're very, very isolated, and we like it that way. We have what's called the Bloomfield ladies on Bloomfield Road, and the ladies all get together, and the husbands are busy working or doing whatever they're doing, and they meet and they talk and they know each other, and if anything ever happened, we'd be able to put a couple of cars on the end of this street and a couple of cars on the end of that street and prevent anybody from driving in. And we could literally, as a community, try and get by. But we don't have a doctor and we don't have a plumber. And maybe we should check on the other streets or develop the skills ourselves, but a sense of community will be part of it. And yet if they come over to me and say, I don't have any water, I'm not going to trade batteries for water. I got plenty.
Yeah, Frank has passed around the hat, so pull out some bills.
Bigger the better.
I sang.
Where's that silver Yeah, where's that I almost want to take a break so everybody can talk, because everybody has so much to say.
No, they will, I'm sure.
I know they will. We'll do that. You want me to?
No, we go to 10, 15, but, we need to be done so that when they finally kick us out, we leave.
All right. I'm going to go inside and eat and read. No other ideas on what to do? Yes, Karen?
We need ham radios.
Ham radio. Okay, that's a real good one. If there's a collapse, if there's a loss of services, electricity, if the powers that be decide to turn off their cell towers, stop the central grounded phone service, you won't be able to communicate at all. Now, ham radio requires power, and you got to know what you're doing. And it's not as easy as you might think, but it will allow you here in Phoenix to find out what's going on in Chicago for real if you know somebody with a ham radio. And you can buy one. It's complex. We had a program here on it before. What's almost more important than that is walkie-talkies. With a walkie-talkie, which you can buy in Walmart, Kmart, Target, places like that, you can communicate from the front of your house to the back of your house. You can communicate from your house to the neighbor 4 blocks away. Now, these things all say range 20 miles, 60 miles. That's nonsense. The range is a mile under good conditions. And the more expensive ones will go a little further, but 60 miles is from the top of a mountain out across open ocean. You don't get any kind of leverage like that, but it would allow you to talk to somebody over short distances, which you otherwise will not be able to do, and it'd be a great item to barter. If you have one pack, 2 shortwave radio, 2 handheld radios, and get battery ops, don't get chargeables, because you may not be able to charge them. That'd be something to have. Yes, sir.
What about CB radios? And you can go to, you can get them up on Craigslist, $25, $35, $45 on up, but you can get the higher end ones, the upper side band, lower side band, and you can establish a communications to your friends that are across town, 12 miles away.
CB radio is another good one. Walkie-talkie gives you a little bit of privacy. CB radio is an open party line, and once again, you need battery-operated units, and you might want to rig some kind of an antenna because you can get a lot better reception if you can plug it into a wire on the side of your house.
The energy, solar chargers, which I'm very, very weak on, but radio I bought from last speaker stuff. I didn't buy from him. I went to the store. What does the battery last? 3 hours, then you're worthless. Then so solar.
So let's look at both of those.
Solar chargers,
electrical generation.
He's talking solar charger, hand crank charger, so you can charge things with rechargeable batteries. Is there anybody in here who doesn't have a supply of batteries in the house and willing to admit it? Batteries now have 7-year shelf life. You should keep some around, right? Canned water.
Dollar store.
The dollar store? You should keep the dollar store in your living room. Yes?
Water containers, seed.
How much seed?
Colonial?
Seed is...
Seed.
Well, wait a minute. Seed is a 2-year lead time. The government has already regulated seeds and are controlling what you can
But I
get.
got a buddy that's got what you're saying.
You don't need seed as much as you need to start your garden today. If we're in a situation like the Book of Eli, and you need seed, I mean, once again, all bets are off. I'm assuming we'll be able to come to this place no matter what kind of collapse we have.
Seed is currency.
And seed will be valuable for
I bought
farmers.
seed once. I only bought seed once. All my plants, a quarter of what goes down is left there to go back to seed, and I get 20 times the seeds that I bought to start with.
Right. You just grow one tomato plant, you have as many tomato seeds as you're ever going to need. And of course, pot seeds will bring a lot of money, and the produce that they generate. All right, let's not go. Guns, ammo, and firearm training. Man, I'm all behind that one. If push comes to shove, you want to have a firearm, but you don't want to have to use it. If you're in a situation where you need your gun to protect your home, once again, all bets are off. One guy, a little bit of roaming bands, be able to protect yourself, yes. If you need enough guns to stop social unrest, we're in deep, deep doo.
I'd stock up on toilet paper, and plastic sheeting can be used in conjunction with plant matter for solar condensers if the utilities totally went to hell.
You mean to make water?
Yeah, if you just essentially dig a hole or have some kind of
put a sheet on top.
hot arrangement, you put vegetable matter in there, you put a plastic sheet over top, a little rock on it, and a bowl to collect the water that evaporates.
If things get so bad that you need to dig a hole to gather water, you're not going to generate enough water to really matter. You've got water in your toilet tank, not the bowl, the tank.
As a last resort.
And your hot water heater is good for about 40 gallons, even a small one. You got to know how to tap it. And a water filter, purifiers, all that stuff. Try doing that. It's yes, Joni.
Try vinegar and bleach too, so if you need emergency purifier. And the vinegar. So if you eat anything food poison, I mean even just a normal apple cider, regular distilled vinegar too. So you can store a lot of distilled vinegar. It's the other stuff for now, but it has not.
Vinegar and Clorox, bleach. What is it? Sodium hypochlorite.
Get your silver rods so you can make your colloidal silver.
Get silver so you can make colloidal silver.
Silver
I'll
rod.
tell you, I saw the Book of Eli. Colloidal silver isn't the factor.
Colloidal silver is, they at Pork Fest, the guys from Phoenix made these colloidal silver kits with the silver rods. It was $45 and it included the silver, and I've seen them, the only cheapest one I saw at health food stores was like $80 with no silver. And they were just selling one after another.
To the people who are deep end into this stuff, in the back.
One interesting book is to have is called Where There Is No Doctor. It covers like basic health needs and out in the open. They've used this book in like third world countries. It's actually been banned in a couple of different countries too as well.
So let's put on reference books like How to Fix Anything.
Prescription for like natural cures, pet stuff that.
Natural cures, medical book, handyman kind of stuff. I can't believe I didn't bring it. We have the all-time best book on how to survive a disaster. It's called It's a Disaster. It's the book that Homeland Security gives to people in disaster zones, and it's organized by disaster type. Hot, cold, flood, drought, you name it. And it's just marvelous. And I brought none. I apologize, but it's in that catalog. A book on... I earned it. I got to admit, I earned it. Okay.
Wait for that.
Now, here's the one that gets me the most, and that's the financial side. You've got to be prepared for this kind of financial collapse that we described a whole bunch of ways. And I've been looking and looking and looking for the solution, and I don't have a perfect one, but I do have one that kind of works. If there's massive inflation, you want to own some gold. You just do, and your cash isn't going to be worth very much. If there's deflation or a collapse where the financial markets haven't gone away, paper money will still hold its value. And people won't be trading gold. You can embed it in plastic and talk about silver and gold. So if this happens, you want in your own home a modest supply of precious metal and a modest supply of paper money. You want both. So whichever one loses value and becomes uncredible, you have some of the others. So you put your cash at risk by having it in cash, and you put your gold at risk by having physical gold, but you've diversified your portfolio. And how much of each do you need? Anybody want to throw out a number? $100?
2,000.
2,000. You want, do what? Can I get 2,500?
1,000.
4,000. $4,000 in cash in your home. Very hard thing to do. But then if something happens, you do have that paper fiat money, which despite all the talk about it's worthless, you can't buy food in here for gold or silver. You just can't. And tomorrow you won't be able to either. And if the power's off and they can still manage to cook, they will still take paper money. They may
Make sure
want
they're
more rubber.
20s.
What's that?
Make sure they're 20s when you can't crack $100.
Right. Or you'll have to pay $100 for 2 loaves of bread and keep the change.
That's the concept of the gold. It's better to have some silver that you can
Because
trade
it's more tradable.
Trade a 1 ounce for a tank of gas.
That's right. An ounce of gold is now, what, $1,500 you can take. It's too much. Now, an ounce of gold is okay while everything is standing. You can still go into a store and say, here's my ounce of gold. By the way, somebody ought to do an investigative piece on all these We Buy Gold stores. Man, I have never seen anything so bad as this. I'm going to go into a few. I went into the biggest advertiser, E.G. Marshall on Scottsdale Road. You see their ads, any of you? In the newspaper, every day, full-page color ads. Every other day, third pages. Day after day after day. I went in there with some gold, some scrap gold, and I said, how much is this worth? And he says, how much do you want? That's illegal. It ought to be. It's immoral, it's unethical. You go to a coin dealer and he says, how much do you want for it? He's trying to rip you off. Because you'll give him a number. The guy had a scale behind a little thing where you couldn't see it. So he waited, and I said, how much is it? He gave me the weight in pennyweight. I can actually convert pennyweight, but I said, what is it in grams? He says, I don't know. He's a jeweler. He's got a scale. There's a button. Grams, ounces, pennyweight. I mean, what kind of... And they were advertising every day. I said, all right, let me have that. How about this? And I gave him a gold coin. He says, well, how much do you want for this? Well, what's a $20 gold piece worth? Well, you know, there's no numismatic value, and it depends, and I got this, and there's some marks on it, blah, 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 blah. And these guys are advertising like crazy. What they're doing is offering people $400 for $1,500 worth of gold. The person walks out and goes, wow, this is great. I got $400 for that old crappy whatever. And they don't realize how badly they've been robbed. Now, it's not illegal, but it's not moral.
They offer me 4 times face value on silver.
4 times face value.
I was like, what?
Gotta be 20 at least.
So they offer you
$30.
$1 for a quarter. And the quarter's worth what?
About $8, $9.
All right, so go ahead.
What, the LDS storehouse in Mesa sells 5-gallon buckets of grains and corn and stuff. That'll last you a month, one person, one 5
The
gallons.
Mormons, as you may know, have a store for long-term food storage, and they're required religiously to keep a year's worth of food in the house. And 3 of my best friends happen to be Mormons. One of them feels real guilty because he's not fully stocked. And the other one is real happy because he's got all the stocks and he eats from the back of the supply and replaces the front of the supply. And so he's got whole grains, knows how to grind them up, and makes the best breads you ever saw.
Does he have any guns?
He's got plenty of guns. We all know where the Mormons are, but they got guns too.
All headed Mesa.
The Mormons take it pretty far. And we haven't called it stockpiling yet, but I think stockpiling should be on the list of solutions. And you need to be able, under normal circumstances, to withstand 3 days. If it goes much more than 3 days without an ability to get food or water or some of the things we're talking about, there will be people desperate in the streets, and you'll start seeing a real collapse of the social order. So 3 days you need because the power can go out that long. People down south, just SRP, had a fire in there without power at 113 degrees. You need to know how to keep yourself cool, and you need at least 3 days. 7 days, if you're going to live in your house on what you got stored up for 7 days, all bets are off again. You can all throw balls at me and each other. We're really in trouble if everything goes away for 7 days. I don't care how much tampons you got in your attic.
7 days. Come on, 7 days? That's nothing.
Right.
7 days. I mean, but that's what I mean. People can survive 7 days.
Well, 7 days without food and water.
Oh, come on.
No.
Okay, so
It's not
I
about
don't
surviving,
believe-
it's a matter of frustration.
Prime example, my sister lives in Virginia. This last winter, when they got inundated with snow, I told her repeatedly, have enough food in your house. That was before they didn't have it.
And this is
3
not
days.
necessarily grains, this could be canned goods and soup.
She was down to toast that's in her freezer on the 3rd day, and she was like, I don't know what the hell to eat.
So
3 days is
the
nothing.
point is, if you have to store food for 7 days or more, and how many of you have 7 days worth of food in your house? Oh, shit. Okay.
How many have more than 3 months?
Whoa!
How many have more than a year?
Well,
You guys are freaking crazy.
that's what she'll say now.
Alan? Get there,
We made Y2K shirts that said, Y2K Pillage and Plunder Team, we don't stockpile. I still have a couple of these.
Did it have a target on the back?
If your neighbors on your street, okay, so you guys are well stocked. Your neighbors on your street don't have 7 days worth of stuff. And if you're sitting there living pretty and your lights are on, you don't want a generator in a disaster. They'll be on, they'll all hear the noise, they're all gonna come over, and you can only shoot one gun at a time. So generators are for a short term in a pinch, but not after a week. You'll have people really desperate. You'll need to be able to protect yourself against a dystopian disaster if the supplies are cut off for more than 7 days. And here's an experiment you guys should try. Turn off the power in your house completely for 2 days. Friday night, turn off the power, and Sunday night, turn it back on, and you will make the best list of what you need that you ever saw. And you'll find out just what it takes to get through
You'd be
this.
throwing the food out of the freezer.
Well,
That's
you're
it.
going to lose your
Right.
refrigerator food, you're going to learn an important
Right.
lesson.
Right.
Maybe you eat it down a little bit before you try this
Yeah.
experiment. Or you cheat and you get ice, dry ice in coolers, but the freezer's a pretty good
Right.
cooler anyway. Give that a try. Try.
Or you got enough kids to exercise bikes, it's an alternator that generates electricity.
And how many of you have that? Everybody raise their hand.
One point you're saying about, we lose power, we're losing the food in the refrigerator. No, if you plan it properly, you're going to dehydrate some of the product, or you're going to can it. Canned food does not have to be refrigerated.
Well, having shelf-stable food, meals ready to eat, all you really need is progressive soups. You don't really need to eat meals ready to eat and that kind of stuff that lasts for 25 years. And you can't can it or dehydrate it when the shit hits the fan. It's too late. You want to take some of these steps now, because afterwards you go, why didn't I buy candles and batteries?
It seems like you might want to have a bicycle so you can go shopping when somebody isn't at home.
A bicycle's a pretty good idea, one with 2 big baskets like I have and a pump for the tires.
Solar up.
And then solar power, you want to put in some solar? That's not a bad idea. And a cardboard box solar oven will cook almost anything, but where are you going to get the chicken? And rabbits, you got to know how to hunt in your backyard. Well, having rabbits around, rabbits are pretty good, yes, Tony.
Be as healthy as you can, sort as much into your own body to be as healthy as time.
So put 30 pounds of undigested fat on your body so that you can live well. Like my wife is always telling me, live off your body fat.
Okay, so where do we get the fair value, $8 to $12 for our coin or whatever?
American Crystal Exchange.
Any gold coin.
She's asking, where do you trade in your gold for good value? If we're in a disrupted situation, It's gonna be catch as catch can, and some people will take it, some won't. Some will say, I don't want your gold if you got any beer, right? Right now, you should go out and find a good gold coin dealer. I got 3 that I like here in the valley. I'm sure he does, and you guys, maybe Ernie can circulate a list. Is everybody on Ernie's email list?
The freedomsphoenix.com email dispatch.
Well, go to gunlaws.com.
Well, get it.
Right up here, gunlaws.com. You can go there, put your name in there, and I'll circulate some things like that. We're going to wrap this up in a minute on a positive note, but I got a couple other things I forgot to do. Shit. I didn't want to carry this home. These are magazines that you won't find anywhere else. They're either writing and journalism magazines that deal with editors and how the journalism industry works. Gun magazines like Gun Retailer and the SHOT Show Journal and things like that. I don't want to carry it home, so I'll pass it around. You guys look in there, take what you want, whatever you want. It's first come, first served. Please don't make me carry that home. It's good stuff. I should have done it earlier. Where's my $100 trillion note?
This one.
Do you enjoy looking at that $100 trillion note? At least it's got a picture of 3 rocks on it. You know?
What's that worth, our money?
I've seen it for between $4 and $12. If you Google $100 trillion note, it comes up. There are places that sell this kind of currency. But the $1 billion note, there's $100 trillion, a 50 trillion, a trillion. The $1 billion notes are more expensive. They're rare. They did, they pulled out the good currency.
It's not a direct conversion. It's just because of curiosity.
Oh yeah, it's just people want them, so
they abandoned it and went to gold and silver and euros.
Yeah, that's overdone. It's kind of fun.
Dinars.
I got one other thing here. This is the complete 8th edition of air guns.
Oh.
Every single air gun made in the country. This is $30. I'll take 5.
I'll take it.
$5 right here.
How about 6?
6. I got 6. I got 7. 7. We have 7. Any more than 7? 8. Got 8. 8, 12, 9. Going for 15. Anybody got 15? 15 down there. 15. Anybody over 15?
15.
We got several for 15.
20.
20 going once, going twice. Buck, it's yours.
20.
And this is
You're
the
like that
concealed
Levi
handgun
Gold store,
manual.
dude. Started out at 5.
This is capitalism. We're giving you a lesson.
Oh, yeah.
This is last year's model. He came out with a new one. The 5th edition was the absolute cat's meow. It's everything about carrying concealed, how to deal with day-to-day, having a gun on you, holster types, how to use it legally. This one's $25. I'll also take. It's $23. I'll take 5 on this. Anybody want it? 6?
4.
Great.
Quiet, man.
Make a deal.
So you got 6, you get it for 6, all right?
All right.
And last but not least, I've written 13 books. I didn't even tell you who I am. I'm Alan Korwin. I run the biggest publishing company in the country on gun laws. I've written 13 books, 9 of them on gun law. I brought a few. They're up here. I'll take $5 off the retail on anything you want. You can go look for yourself. They're up there. I'll put my $100 trillion note away. And I'll be glad to autograph it for you. That's how I make a living. If you want, there's not a lot, so I'm sure we may run out for first come, first serve.
Afterward,
Like I say, $5.
we'll spread these out on the table and people will walk by and get them. Then they can see them. The
What's that?
magazines.
You can do that if you want, but
we'll see they
make
go.
sure you get some. There's magazines in there you won't see anywhere else. It's really some interesting stuff. So, yes.
Alan, all you wonderful people out there that have one up on us this year.
Speak up, please.
Louder. Stand up.
All you people that have one up on us rookies that don't have a week's supply or a month's supply of food, can you give us some tips on what you guys do to kind of...
Honeyville Grains here and down in, I live in Tempe, so south of Tempe, there's a place called Honeyville Grains.
Okay.
Pallets of rice and beans at Sam's Club.
Well, who are you trying to feed?
Honeyville Farms.
Do you have internet?
Where's Honey go?
Okay, it's a real good point. If you're going to stockpile
Listen up.
food, stockpile things you'll eat. Don't go buy 100 pounds of dry pinto beans. I mean, that may be valuable in a year and a half when there's no power, if that's what you want to save up for. But if you're just talking about getting through transient disruptions in the supply chain, inability to get things, what will be more likely to happen is you won't be able to get skin lotion, and you'll want some, but you'll have canned soup. You want to get things you normally eat: canned tuna, canned chicken, soups, a wonderful hot or cold, canned beans, pastas. Pasta stays on a shelf for a long time. Without fuel, you can't cook it. So you want a little camping stove or a barbecue grill with extra cans, and the barbecue grill's got to have a little burner on the side so you can boil water, right? And if you Google survivalism, you'll get to survivalblog.com. Survivalblog.com has everything you can possibly imagine for protecting yourself from a day to 5 years. And if you want a bunker, and this is interesting because at the economic discussion group this came up, if you want a bunker out in the middle of nowhere full of supplies, first thing you got to know is that other people will come by, shoot you, and take your stuff. The second thing is, it's got to be remote where nobody knows you are. Like, not visible from the road, and really, really far away if it goes to dystopian science fiction. But here's what happens in those little towns, because we had a guy come in who did exactly what some of you said you're going to do. He moved out to, I think it was Missouri, and he's in a little town of like 600, and he lives all the way on the outskirts. And he says, when you go to a small town, he describes small town life like I just don't know or understand. He said, the more you want to keep secret and quiet, the more your neighbors want to know who you are and what you're up to. They know what's going on. They live there. It's a small town. Some new guy moved in with Arizona plates. Now he's got Missouri plates. Who is that guy? What kind of car is he driving? What's he doing out there? They want to know. So this idea of running away and hiding, there's more to it than it's cracked up. You really want to be able to stay. My personal attitude is you make your stand in your own home. This idea of having a place up in Prescott, how are you going to get there when you need to? They take out one bridge. They put up one roadblock. You have one accident. In Houston, when the hurricanes came, people sat in their cars for 15 hours. You have no bathroom. You got no food supply. You do it in your home. The idea of a bug-out bag, it's fun, but I think that's this again. Okay, a couple more comments, and then we're going to end on this.
If you have internet, do it now while you still can. There's a free survival course online. It describes every one of those things you just mentioned by David Morris. It's called surviveinplace.com.
Survive in place. Free. Just Google survival, and you'll have all the reading you can, and you will be prepared today for what might happen tomorrow. Make sure you got a little bit of cash and a little bit of precious metals around, and then barter goods and all the other things we can talk about. Yes.
Okay, 3 more comments.
Wait,
Dan,
the guy behind you doesn't say anything.
Go ahead.
In the blue shirt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Contrary to your experience with your precious metal transaction, it just so happens that yesterday I approached the gold and silver establishment, and the lady happens to be in our group. I recognize her this morning. She's in the back far corner. She not only offered me the silver value of the Morgans I have, but in addition to that, brought it up to the collector value. So I just want to say there are some honest people.
So we have a good precious metals dealer here in the corner. What's your name?
Nancy, and I have a store at the Pavilions, and I was going to tell you, Alan, yes, they should show you the weight every time.
Absolutely.
And it's at $20 a gram for 14 karat going today. I make $1.50.
So there it is. There are honest dealers.
I've been here for 40-some odd years doing it. N&R gold and silver. N&R gold and silver.
N&R. You should go up afterwards and get her card or give her your email. Don't forget to give me your email if you haven't jotted it down. It's smart to prepare ahead of time, just for normal power outages and things like that. I want to end on a positive note. All right? This is from another book called Sonic Boom. You sitting down? It takes conviction to write a book about the coming economic boom in the throes of a worldwide recession, according to Adrian Wooldridge in the Wall Street Journal. Like, it wouldn't be true if somebody didn't say it and didn't quote it. That's a journalism trick. you attribute something, all of a sudden it means something. I learned that when I wrote for the Arizona Republic. I did a story on publishers, and I made observations on what the publishing industry is like here. And I made them because I'm in it, and I knew it, and I knew all the people. And 4 times in this damn article, they added, the publishing industry is XYZ, comma, according to industry experts. They threw that in to make it credible. 4 times. According to leading experts, according to industry experts. It's nonsense. It's part of the pull the wool over your eyes. The factual matter either stands or not. The fact that this moron wrote it in the Wall Street Journal, that's not why it makes sense. But it does take conviction to write a book about the coming economic boom. Yet Greg Easterbrook is a born contrarian and convincingly provides a valuable corrective in the gloom. Sonic Boom's theme, globalization is only in its infancy and will yet produce riches that none of us can imagine and scatter them more widely than ever before. Our current woes are merely part of the global economy's growing pains. In the long run, Easterbrook's conjectures are probably correct, according to Daniel Dresner in the New York Times, so that must be true. But he'll have a hard time convincing pessimistic readers that the global slump is merely a hiccup in a period of unprecedented growth, which is what I think is going to actually happen. And while Easterbrook knows how to capture a popular audience, the sonic boom metaphor he uses for globalization could also describe his writing style: noisy, super fast, covering huge amounts of territory. There are people who think things are going to get better. Technology could move us to a place we haven't even seen. And here's the one technological breakthrough that will change everything, make this whole discussion meaningless. When we figure out to turn solar power into physical substance, in other words, catch sunlight and make black goo, and a cubic inch of that black goo will power your home for a year. We don't know how to do it yet. We can convert matter to energy pretty easy. You burn wood, you set off a nuke. But converting energy to matter, we haven't figured out. There's enough energy out there. When we can convert it, if the United States comes up with this, the world will beat our path through our door. Oil will be used for what it's more valuable for, which is making plastics and puffballs. And we will have an economy that is so robust, like he says, will generate wealth and distribute it more widely than we can even possibly imagine. So keep all your buckets of water and grain, or chicken soup.
Or tampons.
And God bless you all. Thanks for coming here. This was a joy. Thanks, Alan. I'd like to get these back.
I just want to make an announcement real quick before Frank announces the winners to get to select from the books. This is the future. These tablets are where all information is going to be interfaced with, and this is just a large version of a smartphone. Now, what we've done is produced a digital magazine that can be emailed and so on around, and you just read it by turning the page. This is the future, and you guys can get it by going to freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. There's a daily email dispatch that we put out also that has, anybody that's been on it, we've had it for 6 years, and it's very popular around the country. It was the people behind Freedom's Phoenix and a lot of people in this room that was the beginning of the Ron Paul revolution. That logo I created. It started here, and it exploded around the country. And there were people, when we first started, that did not understand it, but we knew. And the reason we knew was because daily we immersed ourselves in facts and information from all over the spectrum, from all over the world, to understand what's happening. I encourage you to get this information, and it's headlines, from all over the country in various, main publications, but it's on page C14 or something. And we know what is really important. It always came down to economics. Freedoms with an S, freedomsphoenix.com. Go visit that and sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get it, and it's free. Subscription to the magazine costs, but that's $5 a month. The one thing that I did want to give you guys, we are very optimistic. From all the information that we have, we understand, yes, individuals, the people that I'll give you a story real quick so you understand. On Freedom's Phoenix, we have taken all of the war information and anything to do with the Middle East and so on, And we have what we call special editions, like Ed has his own special edition.
Revolution continues.
And there are like parallel, duplicates of Freedom's Phoenix for various different issues. One of them is called Harriya Phoenix. That's Freedom's Phoenix in Arabic. It is translated. We put all the news that's up there like we format it for our regular page. Then we hit a translate button. We can translate Freedom's Phoenix into 39 languages. One of them is Arabic. The URL at the top is created. We put it on our Arabic-speaking Facebook and Twitter. When Cairo started to go in the uprising, we knew what was coming because it was economics. They were starving. 80 million people in Egypt, 20 million in the Cairo area, most of them in the Nile Valley. The age in Egypt is 24, compared with 36 in America. Over 33% of the people in Egypt are 14 years of age or younger. This demographic they could not get away from. 40% of the people lived on less than $4 a day, and in the last year, food prices went up over 100%. They are starving. The entire Middle East, all of these regimes that the U.S. has been propping up, and it's coming to Central America. It's happening in Europe, and it's coming to the United States. I don't care what they say on TV. This is coming. But the problem has always been central command, control. All of the devaluation of our savings, your retirement, all that stuff. But what has happened is that there is an entire generation coming up knowing that the institutions that have been begging for their allegiance and giving them legitimacy and credibility are crumbling. So we, as an example, certainly in America, they're looking to us and what happened with the Levolution and so on as an example for them to come out. We sent Arabic translations of various different movies and films and such. We had the Declaration of Independence, Constitution and Bill of Rights that was translated into Arabic. We sent to Alexandria, Egypt. We've been working on this since January. What happened was on the Constitution part, we put a little mailing label that was translated to Arabic, says, we already tried this, maybe you can do better. But, so this battle, you want a worldwide government? Let me tell you what happened. You get a worldwide revolution, and it's already started. And the younger generation know it. And with immediate translators on the internet, they are communicating in real time with people in Iran and Yemen and Somalia and Egypt. And the 13-year-old little whatever strap-on bomb jihad blow-up doesn't exist. I mean, they got guys doing it as the poster child for this stuff. But these people are communicating directly with the young here. And there is going to be this globalization of the economy. But they want it under the control of the government, like with NAFTA and all this other stuff. They're bypassing it. It's over. This structure, everything that you see the way it is now, is already infinitely different from what it was 10 years ago. And 10 years from now, it won't even be recognizable. But there will be peace eventually because people want it. The only people that don't want it are the people that are trying to control you. As soon as you get the revolution between the ears and you free your mind, all this other stuff just falls away. And for the past 4 years, I've been traveling all over the country, weeks at a time, I'm all over. I see it everywhere I go. And it's a generational thing. So, the future is here already. And I just want to make sure you guys know this is not so that we can, oh my goodness, we can live in a Mad Max on top of the heap. What we need to do is just survive this so that we can thrive in what's coming later. Freedom in the end always wins. Yeah. It just gets really messy first.
Yeah!
Who got this?
Small correction of it, if you're taking the Freedom's Phoenix website off the back of one of these green sheets, between Phoenix and Freedom, place an S.
It's freedoms.
Freedom. Okay, first choice for book, 2508. 2508.
Last four.
Must be present.
All right.
Next one, 2483. 2483. Have one over here. Books are in the back. On the back table in the corner, right in the corner in the back. 2501.
2501.
Is that you?
No, I didn't get one. I got
2501.
Right back here.
He's back there.
You got it?
Okay.
Okay, the one that didn't show, 2495. 2495. Got that? Okay. All right, you guys, thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed us today, and we'll see you a month from now.